I mean, the big products of the coming century will not be shoes or clothes or cars or weapons. The big products of the 21st century are going to be bodies and minds. So I think we are heading towards the upgrading of Homo sapiens into gods.
The next big projects of humankind will be to overcome old age and death, to find the keys, the secret to happiness, and to basically upgrade humans into gods. This is why the title Homo Deus, God-Man. And I don't mean it as a kind of literary metaphor. I mean it in the literal sense that for thousands of years, humans have imagined gods in a particular way. They ascribed particular abilities and qualities to gods. And we are here in a church, and the walls are full of these descriptions of what God can do. And we are now seriously in the business of acquiring these traditional divine abilities and qualities to ourselves. Whether it's trying to overcome death and gain immortality, or whether it's gaining the ability to create and design life according to our wishes. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, basically the first thing God does is to create animals and plants and humans according to his wishes. We are now trying to gain this divine ability to ourselves. It's very likely that in the 21st century, the main product, the most important products of the human economy will no longer be just vehicles and textiles and food and weapons. The main products will be bodies and brains and minds. And in a way, we are even reaching beyond what ancient religions ascribed to the gods. Because the gods, like Jehovah in the Bible, they could create only organic beings. If you're a creationist, and you look at the world, so all these animals, all these plants, God created them, and they are all organic. Now humans are trying to do better than that.
I mean, all this story about Jesus rising from the dead and being the Son of God, this is fake news.
We don't need to wait for Jesus Christ to come back to earth in order to overcome death. A couple of geeks in a laboratory can do it. We'll have the possibility of upgrading humans into superhumans. If we are giving up on gods, but we will turn ourselves into new kinds of gods. We'll maybe acquire divine abilities through ourselves.
Let's begin with the very tagline and thesis statement on the banner heading of the website of Yuval Noah Harari. History began, he says, when humans invented gods, and will end when humans become gods. He says we're going to become gods. Have you heard that somewhere in the Bible? I mean, we've heard Satan say, I will ascend and be in the position of the creator. And then we've seen in previous sessions that he's creating a metaverse, creating social robots, creating these counterfeit entities of tech and AI that are mimicking human, that are replacing human. He's finally achieving that status that he thought he could have and never could create biological entities, but now he can do it with silicon. He's already been doing it for decades with digital interfaces and video game addiction and social media. So we saw him do that. We saw him say, I'm the counterfeit creator. But here now, he said to Eve in the garden, you will be like God. He tells us we can be gods. And Harari says history began when humans invented gods. Now, humans did invent a lot of pagan deities, but we did not invent. How do you invent the creator? What created us then? Well, the creator is the only thing that could have. And the Bible has proven true that God created this world. So we have a beautiful, wonderful, theological, philosophical understanding of origins and where matter and energy originated. It didn't create itself, did it? But he says we created gods, false. But this session is about the latter part of his statement. We will become gods. What is this? Human 2.0, the great merge and media in the brain and the God delusion. Well, the God delusion is that idea that we will become gods. the merge is beginning. Newsweek reported brain augmentation, how scientists are working to create cyborg humans with super intelligence. So we're going to augment our brains, and we will become cyborg humans with super intelligence. DARPA has been working on this, the big, well-funded, sometimes secretive U.S. military scientific research agency. They had a $65 million grant to connect human brains with digital devices, so the technology is moving forward on that front. The Telegraph reported, AI implants will allow us to control our homes with our thoughts within 20 years, government report claims. And then you had also from the World Economic Forum, can't leave them out. This is the mouthpiece of the technocracy. They said augmented tech can change the way we live, but only with the right support and vision. Here's how they explained it. Augmented reality technology has the ability to transform society and individual lives. It talks about how children look at superheroes and they expect to develop superpowers themselves. These expectations may sound unattainable, but we've already been making the first strides toward an augmented society. Trade fairs are boasting AR goggles that show technicians where a particular screw should go. If you're, working on mechanical labor, your own phone gives you information about your fitness in real time or tells you about the latest fad. Augmentation can be defined as the extension of rehabilitation where technological aids such as glasses, cochlear implants, and prosthetics are designed to restore a lost or impaired function. I'll explain that in just a second. Let's finish the paragraph. Added to completely healthy individuals, and such technology can augment. Night goggles, exoskeletons, and brain-computer interfaces build up the picture. So basically that last paragraph was saying, hey, we're already using cochlear implants and glasses. So since we're using glasses to augment our reality, why not wire chips right into our brains and have all the tech invasion and merging of our thoughts and our intentions and our lives with tech? So you can see the giant leap that was made there from glasses to merging humans with technology. It's just augmenting us, right? Like glasses have always done. Now, you might have thought life was crazy when smartphones dominated our lives, and you've seen the media mind, and we've seen the horror stories and studies and facts and data on that. But you know what's coming next? The end of the smartphone. We already saw it with the metaverse coming. Mark Zuckerberg just announced the end of the smartphone. And listen to the CEO of Nokia at the World Economic Forum.
All right, we have 1 minute left, so very quickly.
I wanted to ask when you all think we're going to move from this form factor to something that's on your face, glasses, and when computing's all on the edge.
All right, 50 seconds. Who wants to answer quickly?
I think it will go. It will. First of all, it will definitely happen. I was talking about 6G earlier, which is around 2030. I would say that by then, definitely the smartphone as we know it today will not anymore be the usual kind of the most common interface.
Wow.
Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies.
And one of the important statements we've, I think, made at our most recent developers conference is that we believe that one of the big advantages of augmented reality is actually solving problems here on Earth, and it will be things like having glasses and being able to translate as you speak with glasses, and those are very close.
Holograms will be very, very high quality in the era of 6G. I've already seen 5G based hologram demonstrations. They already work, but then with the next generation technology, I mean, we could be having this meeting so that in reality we would be sitting in different parts of the world.
So by 2030, the smartphone's going to be history. It's all going to be built into our bodies or on glasses with augmented reality and holograms, he said. Here's Klaus Schwab talking about a chip in our brain.
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants, and we measure your brain waves, and I can immediately tell you how the people react, or I can feel how the people react to your answers.
This was a little publication put out by an elementary school where they just take this for granted that this is coming. In 10 years, we imagine education at Preston West Primary will have more buildings and development. That's a normal thing you'd see from school publication. Technological advances for teachers and students. Yeah. Far more learning will be on a screen. Yeah, that makes some people a little leery. But then it says microchips in students' brains to promote intelligence and memory. More mental health awareness and different styles for learning. You'd expect that last one there, but they just threw in there microchips in students' brains in 10 years to promote their intelligence. Well, in other words, to outsource their intelligence, to reduce their intelligence, to merge what was formerly human intelligence into the cloud and the hive mind. New Scientist, mind-reading AI turns thoughts into words using a brain implant. So the technology advancing. Zuckerberg wants Facebook to build a mind-reading machine. So if they can read the mind, then what they can do is engineer the mind. Once you have the data on how it works, then you can engineer it, you can counterfeit it, you can connect it. The guy who was really predicting all of this ahead of time, you've heard about this probably when we were talking about it years ago, and in Second Beast Rising and other places. You're going to hear a clip actually at the end of this session. You'll hear all of this from 2016-17 when we were putting the media mind together. But what Ray Kurzweil, former executive at Google, said is that by the 2030s, human brains will be able to connect to the internet, just allowing us to send emails directly from our brain through the cloud, through our and backing up our own thoughts and memories on the cloud hard drive. Nanobots will be swimming around in the capillaries of our brains, he said, in order to allow us to have the extension of our brain into what he called predominantly non-biological thinking. Now, you hear an oxymoron in that statement, don't you? Is it thinking when it's no longer in my biological brain? God gave me the hardware here. If there's something else, if I'm thinking with the technology, then it's non-biological. It's not just my thinking anymore. We talked about that in the media mind. I know, but that's important. So that's why we call this media in the brain. Elon Musk referred to it as a neural lace, giving the brain a new electronic layer that will work with the artificial intelligence to allow us to instantly access online information. But not just that. He said we're going to be able to have new bodily senses. Remember, the technology takes us beyond the confines of God's reality, said the former video game addict, Niels Clark, the one with the picture of Eve and the fruit. He goes, it will extend and inflate our consciousness. And that was just video games, immersive, massively multiplayer online role-playing games. This is going to be a whole new level. We're going to download new skills, download personality traits, Elon Musk predicted. DARPA is planning to hack the human brain to let us upload or download skills. We can upload our skills, share them, and receive other skills. We've got a merging of the human brain into this Borg. 2013, Harari was talking about these things around the same time that Kurzweil was as well. He wasn't a well-known guy, but let's listen to what he said back then.
What is at stake is upgrading our cognitive and emotional abilities. So it's unlikely that these ethical and political objections will indefinitely prevent the research from going forward. So this is the first method by which Homo sapiens might upgrade itself quite soon into something completely different: biological engineering. Another method to upgrade humans is cyborg engineering. Cyborgs are beings that combine organic and inorganic parts, such as a human with bionic hands. In a sense, all of us are cyborgs these days, since our natural senses and functions are supplemented and improved by devices such as eyeglasses and pacemakers and even computers. Computers perform more and more tasks previously done by our organic brains and memories. We are likely to start having inorganic devices connected directly to our brains and to our nervous systems. Devices that will be inseparable from us and that will change our abilities, desires, personalities, and identities. Jesse is an American electrician who lost both his arms up to the shoulder in 2001 in an accident. Claudia has lost one arm in a motorcycle accident. Both of them now use bionic arms. The amazing thing about these bionic arms is that they are operated by thought alone. Neural signals arriving from the brain are translated by microcomputers, very small computers, into electric commands. And according to these commands, the arms move. Now, just imagine, what if such direct interfaces are used to directly link a brain to the internet, so you can surf the internet just with your consciousness? Or to directly link several brains to the same computer, and thereby linking all of them together and creating a sort of interbrain net. If the brain can have direct access to collective databanks and collective memories, in such a situation, one cyborg could, for example, retrieve the memories of somebody else, not to hear about them, not to read about them in a book, not to imagine how this person must have felt, but to directly remember the memories of somebody else as if they were his own. What happens to concepts like gender identity when minds become collective, and when a man can actually remember the memories of a woman? Nobody knows the answer to these complicated questions. There is a possibility of creating completely non-organic beings without any organic parts. We will have at our disposal the ability to read the thoughts in the mind of another person directly, whether he wants it or not. Just think what the CIA, for example, could do with such an amazing invention. A two-way brain-computer interface that will allow computers to read the electrical signals of a human brain while simultaneously transmitting signals that the brain can read and interpret and understand.
Yeah, no thanks. I think I'll stay human. I mean, God made us in his image. I don't need an upgrade and this collective mind, as he called it. Individuality is important. I mean, you can see so many potential hazards with that. It is the end of the individual human consciousness. And yes, we are connected, but through choice, not through assimilation into this group mind, literally. They've been talking about the group mind psychologically and how that's a phenomenon in social psychology, but this would be the literal wiring in. And I think every single person just about who's watching this is thinking, no thanks. I think I'll stay human. But they are saying we are upgrading to human 2.0, as he called it. By the way, before I go to the next slide, did you notice when he talked about the upgrade of humans at the very beginning of the clip, the imagery behind him was happy married couple and all these happy human faces. So you've got the human aesthetic and beauty and joy that's used as an overlay and a mask for what is the anti-human agenda. And that's not just bionic arms and stuff. That's great. You know, being able to have somebody use a function like that, that's not changing what he called your identity, your personality, the skills, the memories of other people that you're going to import into your own. Crazy. But they say it's human 0.0. We're evolving into a new species. They believe in evolution. This is just the next logical stage of evolution. Expert believes superhumans called Homo Optimus will talk to machines and be digitally immortal. We'll get to that topic by 2050. But here it is, the evolution of the human. Now, it's not Harari only. This is Klaus Schwab, the very essence and definition of what is his fourth industrial revolution. Listen to what he says about the fourth industrial revolution.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
So the previous industrial revolutions just changed the technology that we interact with, what we are doing, whether it's steam, electricity, internet. That started to change us a bit, the internet very much so. But he says it's literally going to change us now. It's going to change, as you heard earlier, in our brains. The Bible says God created man in his image, right? Now think about this, though. If this coming merge as Elon Musk called it, he said the best thing we can hope for in this battle for supremacy with AI is a merge with AI to try to control it, because there's these sci-fi, futuristic, fearful things of AI, overtaking us and all of that. But so Elon Musk said it's a merge. Now, the merge has already begun. We touch, tap, and swipe our devices, remember this from the media mind, 2,617 times per day. And as you heard, we're already one with it. I mean, it's an appendage, right? I've outsourced my thinking, my information gathering, my collection of facts. So much of who I am, my memory, my navigational capabilities have been outsourced to the device, to the smartphone. We're already merging with it mentally with regard to placing the functions of the brain on this external, for now, device. But if we become so dependent on that, and we go on that slippery slope down into these next steps that they're discussing, it's going to be a seamless transition for most people. You might say, oh, this sounds ridiculous. There's no way that people are going to do that. If you would have shown them the world we live in right now, 20 years ago, and the way that young people function, and the way that children are being raised or not, and the way that we are interacting or not, that the era of social distance would have mind-boggled people from 20 years ago, right? So we're moving that direction already now, because we've come to believe that these smartphones are more important than people, right? So why have so many people? The technological progress, as they call it, seems to just be a law of nature. It's inevitable. If it can be invented and created, it will be invented and created. Maybe we should have asked that before the invention of the hydrogen bomb, right? Don't wait for somebody to ask, hey, wait, maybe we shouldn't go there with connecting all human brains together on this cloud computing brain interface of a society of a metaverse. Maybe all the social engineering, yeah, that too. Maybe all the digital engineering of the DNA and of the amalgamations and all the futuristic weird things that they are trying to do in laboratories and at CERN with superconducting super colliders, and science so-called can get way out of control and way out of hand and be a danger not only to human life, but to our very understanding of consciousness and what it means to be a human. So they're going to press forward till that cliff moment where they're taking people right over the edge. But we still have free choice, don't we? Right now, we can choose. We can opt out of some things. We can say no thank you to, like you did when you were listening to Harari. You're like, yeah, I think I'll stay human, right? But for the first time, we do have to ask ourselves, where are we going to draw the line with the use of technology? As Christians, it's always been about, we don't want to consume worldly content, but we can utilize devices and screens and technologies to God's glory. That's awesome. That's great. But the next steps in the technological advancement are going to leave us with more difficult questions, philosophical questions about what it means to be human. And I think with the Luddites smashing the machines and not wanting the Industrial Revolution to come in, and with the Amish saying no to the internal combustion engine, they made decisions and drew lines for themselves and their convictions and said, this is where we will not allow technology to go any further in our own practical lives. Now, the Luddites obviously were destroying things and were activists in that sense and criminal in that sense. But let's take the Amish as the example. They might have been a little ahead of the curve, and maybe making some decisions and convictions with a little more sensitive conscience than the rest of us in regard to use of electricity and so on. But the concept of drawing a line somewhere and saying no to some things, they are the model and they are the example. So we've got to look to that Amish example, and we might not have had the same convictions over the particulars, but the same concept of what will we opt out of is going to face us and has begun. And if it doesn't, the suicide of the human soul begins. The end of human individual consciousness and relationships, and as we've known it to be made in the image of God, ends. Maybe that's the end of history if they were to have their way, as Harari talked about it. It's the end of humanity. Now here's some good news. We look at prophetic indicators to know how soon Christ may be coming and how the birth pangs are intensifying. When I say how soon, I don't mean literally date setting. I just mean, it's getting nearer. It's coming quickly. Let's get ready. Here's another indicator. Because will God really let history go on to that end of humanity? We know in prophecy that decisions are made by individuals who are not all in some sort of Borg hive mind. Individual decisions are made for God or against him, for his law or for the counterfeit. So there are some boundaries here on how long history could go on.